Before the stage. Before the sound check. Before anything. Jimi Hendrix found a piece of paper on the floor. A child's drawing. Crude guitar shapes. A name scrawled in crayon. And everything stopped. August 1968. The Fillmore East. New York City. Backstage corridor, concrete floor, exposed pipes, that particular smell of old venues, cigarette smoke and sweat and wood. The kind of space where legends prepared in silence before walking into the roar. Jimi Hendrix was scheduled to perform in 40 minutes. The band was ready. The audience was filling the theater. Everything was on schedule. Everything was routine. He was walking from the dressing room toward the stage entrance, moving through that familiar pre-show quiet, when he saw it. A piece of paper on the floor. White. Folded once. Lying against the wall near a stack of amplifier cases. He stopped. The road manager walking behind him nearly collided with his back. "Jimmy? We need to." Hendrix didn't respond. He crouched down, one knee touching the cold concrete, and picked up the paper. He unfolded it slowly. A child's drawing. Crayon. Multiple colors but mostly red and blue. The image was simple. A stick figure holding what was clearly meant to be a guitar, the body drawn too large, the neck too short, the strings just 6 wavering lines. Above the figure, in uneven letters that suggested maybe 7 or 8 years old. For Jimmy. From Marcus. Below, in that same uncertain handwriting. "You make my mom smile when she cries." The road manager shifted his weight. "Jimmy, we really need to. Where did this come from?" Hendrix's voice was quiet. Not asking loudly. Just asking. "What?" "This." Hendrix held up the drawing without looking away from it. "Who left this here?" The road manager leaned in, squinting. "I don't know, man. Probably fell out of someone's bag. Fan mail gets everywhere. We should find out who Marcus is." "What?" "Marcus." Hendrix stood slowly, still holding the drawing carefully, like it might tear. "The kid who drew this. Find out who he is." Hendrix didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. The road manager stared at him. Behind them, Billy Cox emerged from the dressing room, bass in hand, ready to move toward the stage. He saw Hendrix standing motionless in the corridor, holding a piece of paper, and stopped. "What's going on?" Billy asked. "Nothing," the road manager said quickly. "Just some fan thing. Jimmy, we really don't have time." "How long until we're on?" 40 minutes. "Then we have time." Hendrix looked at the road manager directly. Not aggressive. Not demanding. Just absolutely certain. "Find Marcus. Or find whoever brought this backstage." The road manager opened his mouth to argue, realized there was no point, and disappeared down the corridor. Billy Cox walked over, looked at the drawing Jimmy was holding. "A kid?" "Yeah. Says his mom cries." "Yeah." They stood in silence for a moment. The kind of silence musicians share when words aren't necessary. Billy had played with Jimmy long enough to recognize when something had shifted, when the plan had quietly dissolved and something else was taking its place. "You want to meet him?" Billy asked. "If he's here." "And if he's not?" Hendrix looked at the drawing again. At the crooked guitar. At the uneven letters. At the word cries, spelled wrong because an 8-year-old doesn't know better but knows enough to recognize when his mother is in pain. "Then we play for him anyway." To understand what happened next, you need to understand something about Jimi Hendrix that most people never saw. He didn't talk much. Not about the deep things. Not about why music mattered or what it meant to him, or why he played the way he did. He let the guitar speak. He let the sound explain what words couldn't. But children were different. Children didn't want explanations. They didn't want philosophy. They wanted connection. And Jimi Hendrix, who could command a stadium of 20,000 people without saying a word, who could make grown musicians weep with a single solo, who carried a kind of natural authority that needed no announcement. He understood children. Because children saw through everything. They didn't care about fame. They didn't care about technique. They cared about whether you were real. Whether you noticed them. Whether the music you made actually touched the place inside them that hurt. And this drawing, this simple, crooked, crayon drawing, said everything. A mother who cried. A child who noticed. And music that made it better, at least for a moment. 15 minutes later, the road manager returned. Behind him, a woman in her early 30s, black, wearing a simple dress and carrying a purse clutched against her chest like a shield. Her eyes were red, recently red, like she'd been crying in the last hour. Behind her, half hiding behind her skirt, a small boy. Maybe 7. Maybe 8. Thin. Wide eyes. Terrified. Jimi Hendrix was sitting on an amplifier case, the drawing resting on his knee. When he saw them, he stood slowly. Didn't rush. Didn't perform. Just stood. "You're Marcus?" he said to the boy. The child nodded, unable to speak. "You drew this?" Another nod. Jimmy looked at the mother. "Is it okay if I talk to him?" The woman's voice broke when she tried to answer. She nodded instead, one hand touching her son's shoulder. Jimmy crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with Marcus. The corridor was quiet. Billy Cox had stepped back. The road manager had disappeared. It was just the three of them, Hendrix, the boy, and the mother. "This is a really good drawing," Jimmy said quietly. Marcus found his voice small and uncertain. "I'm not good at drawing." "Are you kidding? Look at this guitar. You got the shape right. You got the strings. You even got the..." He pointed to a small detail at the bottom of the guitar body. "You got the pickup switch. Most people don't even know that's there." A tiny smile flickered across Marcus's face. "Your mom," Jimmy said gently. "She likes music?" Marcus nodded. "She plays your records. All the time. Especially when she's sad." "What makes her sad?" The boy looked up at his mother, uncertain if he should answer. She closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "My dad left," Marcus said simply. "He doesn't live with us anymore. And Mom cries at night. But when she plays your music, she stops crying. So I wanted to say thank you. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the meaning of this moment is still unfolding." Jimi Hendrix had been thanked a million times. By fans. By critics. By other musicians. The gratitude washed over him constantly, endless and abstract, the way fame tends to be. Appreciated but not quite real. This was different. This was a child who had noticed his mother's pain and had found, in music, the only thing that helped. And had taken the time to draw a picture, crooked, misspelled, imperfect, because he wanted the person who made that music to know it mattered. Jimmy looked at the drawing again. At the stick figure holding the too large guitar. At the words, "You make my mom smile when she cries." He stood slowly. Looked at the mother, who was wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to compose herself. "What's your name?" he asked her. "Grace," she managed. "Grace." He said it like he was filing it away, like it mattered. "How did you get backstage?" "I didn't mean to," she said quickly. "I brought Marcus to see the theater. We were just looking. And he wanted to leave you his drawing. The security guard let us back here for 1 minute. I didn't think, I'm so sorry, we should go." "No," Jimmy said quietly. "Don't go." He looked at Billy Cox, who was watching from the shadows. "Billy," Jimmy said. "Change of plans?" Billy raised his eyebrows. "What kind of change? We're not playing the set list. What are we playing?" Jimmy looked at Marcus. Then at Grace. Then back at the drawing in his hands. "We're playing for them." In that quiet moment, Hendrix did something no one expected. 20 minutes later, the Fillmore East was packed. 1,800 people filling every seat, pressed against the walls, buzzing with anticipation. The lights dimmed. The stage was dark except for a single spotlight. The promoter was furious. Jimi Hendrix had refused to come to the stage until a very specific condition was met. 2 seats, front row center, had to be cleared. Paying customers had to be moved. Apologies had to be made. Money had to change hands. But Jimmy wouldn't budge. And when Grace and Marcus were finally seated, front row center, directly in front of where Jimmy's microphone stand would be, only then did he walk onto the stage. The audience erupted. Screaming. Applause. That wall of sound that greets a legend. Jimmy walked to the microphone. Didn't acknowledge the applause. Just waited for it to die down, which took nearly a minute. When the room was finally quiet, he spoke. "I want to dedicate tonight to 2 people," he said, his voice soft, intimate despite the size of the room. "Grace and Marcus. They're sitting right here." He gestured to the front row. "Marcus drew me a picture earlier. It said I make his mom smile when she cries. And I realized something backstage." He paused. 1,800 people waited. "I realized I've been playing music for a long time. And I've played for a lot of reasons. But I don't think I've ever played for the right reason until tonight." He looked down at Marcus, who was staring up at him with wide, terrified, thrilled eyes. "Tonight I'm playing for you, little man. And for your mom. And for everyone in this room who needs music to stop crying. Just for a little while." He turned to Billy Cox. To Mitch Mitchell on drums. Didn't say anything. Just looked at them. They nodded. And then Jimi Hendrix did something he almost never did. He played softly. Not the explosion of sound people expected. Not the stadium-shaking solos. Not the feedback and fury and fire. He played gently. Tenderly. Blues that breathed. Notes that had space between them. Melodies that didn't demand attention but offered it, like a hand extended in the dark. The audience was confused at first. This wasn't the show they paid for. This wasn't the Jimi Hendrix they expected. But after 2 minutes, the confusion melted. After 5 minutes, the room was completely silent except for the music. After 10 minutes, people were crying. Because what Jimi Hendrix understood. What he'd always understood but tonight was demonstrating with absolute clarity, was that real power isn't about volume. It's about precision. It's about knowing exactly what's needed in the moment and delivering only that. Marcus needed gentleness. Grace needed hope. The room needed to remember that music wasn't just entertainment. It was medicine. And Jimmy played for 90 minutes without a single explosive solo. No showmanship. No stage theatrics. Just pure, honest, heartbreaking blues. What followed stayed with everyone in the room, long after the last note faded. When the final song ended, the audience didn't applaud immediately. They sat in silence. Some were wiping their eyes. Some were holding hands with strangers. The feeling in the room was cathedral quiet, reverent. Then, slowly, the applause built. Not wild. Not screaming. Just deep, genuine, sustained applause that came from a place beyond entertainment. Jimmy set his guitar down carefully. He walked to the edge of the stage and crouched down in front of Marcus. "You still got that drawing?" Marcus shook his head. "You have it. Good. Because I'm keeping it. And every time I play from now on, I'm going to remember what you wrote. About making your mom smile. That's the only reason to play. Everything else is just noise." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a guitar pick. Extended it toward Marcus. "This is for you. But here's the deal, you take care of your mom. You notice when she's sad. And when she needs music, you remember that music is medicine. It heals. That's what it's for." Marcus took the pick with trembling hands. Nodded solemnly. Jimmy stood. Looked at Grace. "You're a good mom," he said simply. She couldn't speak. Just nodded, tears streaming. He walked off stage. The show was over. Backstage, the road manager was waiting, looking stressed. Jimmy, that wasn't the set we planned. The promoter is. I don't care. Jimmy walked to his dressing room. He opened his guitar case and carefully placed Marcus's drawing inside, tucked into the interior pocket where he kept his spare strings. It stayed there for the rest of his life. Every show. Every recording session. Every time he traveled. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 30 years later, Marcus, now a music teacher in Brooklyn, would tell his students about the night Jimi Hendrix changed a sold-out show because of a crayon drawing. About how real mastery isn't playing fast or loud. It's knowing exactly what someone needs and giving them only that. The guitar pick Jimmy gave him that night sits in a frame on his classroom wall. Below it, a small plaque. Music is medicine. Jimi Hendrix understood what most never learn. The greatest power is the power you don't use. The solo you don't play. The volume you don't need. The ego you never had. He didn't break the room by playing louder. He broke it by playing softer.